Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our latest Railbookers webinar. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday. Great to have so many of you here with us. I can see, in fact, that we've got people still signing in as I speak. So what we'll do is we'll probably pause just for another minute or so to allow everyone who's currently joining time to get settled down and comfortable. So if you were in the middle of, I don't know, finishing off a cup of coffee or something, you've got time to do that, I think, before we start. So once again, for the benefit of those just tuning in, welcome, great to have you here. We're going to kick things off in round about another minute's time, just to allow time for those who are just tuning in, time to get settled, comfortable, get the audio working, and so on. So speak to you all very, very shortly. Good afternoon once again, and welcome to those of you who've just tuned in. Welcome to the latest Railbookers webinar. Thanks for joining us. Today's webinar is all about Switzerland and Italy. We're going to be looking at our most popular holidays to those two fantastic countries, which will show what's popular for people booking right now, whether it's for travel later this year or, of course, for travel next year too. My name is Matt, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this Tuesday afternoon. Just to run through very quickly the format that we'll take for the webinar today, we'll start off with a very brief introduction, which is really for the benefit of anyone who's new to Railbookers and who we are and what we do. Then we'll just take a very brief detour to answer a question that we're asked all the time at the moment, which is what's happening in mainland Europe to make things as safe as they can possibly be. And then we'll start the main part of the webinar. Hopefully we'll have time for a question or two at the end. As you've hopefully seen already, you can submit those at any point on the screen during the webinar. If we have time, I'll try and pick one or two at the end to answer live. But don't worry if you do submit one and we don't get around to all of them, because we have got quite a lot to get through today, because one of the team will reach out to everyone who's submitted a question over the next 24 hours or so, make sure we answer every single one. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's make a start and off we go. So first off, a brief introduction as promised. And firstly, to look at who we are and what we do and why travelers love taking rail holidays with us. And the answer to that really is that there isn't just one answer, there's a number of different reasons. First of all, we have the rail expert knowledge. As we like to say, we speak rail. And that's really everything from knowing the best combinations, which countries and journeys to put together, the best routes, and all of those things that combine into ensuring that your rail holiday is the best it can possibly be. And that rail holiday could be any one from a large selection of different types of holiday. As an example, if you have a special occasion coming up in the not too distant future, perhaps you might be looking at a luxury rail experience. You could be looking at a city break or a getaway, perhaps over a long weekend or a couple of days. Maybe you're looking at a multi-city or multi-country journey to tick off some of those places you've always wanted to travel to but never quite got around to it. Maybe you've got a river cruise booked next year and you'd like to extend your holiday by adding some travel by train and hotel stays to bookend it at the start and at the end, maybe. Or perhaps it could be creating a tailor-made rail itinerary for a holiday that you have in mind. Whatever it might be, there's lots of different ideas and permutations. booking with us for all of those different options, you can look at booking and traveling at any time from today up until 2023. So you can book up to 2 years in advance, which is really important if you do have, that special occasion coming up, maybe next year, or you're just traveling at a popular time and you want to make sure you can get everything secured to make sure that you can travel at the time you want to go. Well, either way, we've got you covered. No rail trip is too complicated for us to look at. Any destination, any date for any length of time. If the train goes there, then so do we. We do have a range of digital brochures available via our website if you'd like to download those and have a peruse. Everything from our main Railbookers brochure, which features a selection of our top-selling holidays, to a number of other ones that we've created over the past year, including brochures with a focus on travel in the UK, travel to Scotland, and also cruise extensions like we mentioned just before, as well as a selection of our luxury rail holidays as well. So railbookers.co.uk is the place to head to for any and all of those. And why book now? Well, a very good answer to that question is that we're offering maximum flexibility to all customers who book new reservations up to and including the 30th of September this year. And what that means is you have the flexibility, the freedom, that if you need to, you can change your dates, the duration of your holiday, or even the destination with no change or cancellation fees to do so at any point up until 5 days before you're due to depart. So that's for all new reservations made up to and including the 30th of September this year. And one of the other ways that we take the complexity out of rail travel is we work directly with all of the main rail operators in Europe, North America, Australia, and beyond. Here's a selection of some of our partners and colleagues over in Italy with Trenitalia, SNCF, Deutsche Bahn, Eurostar, of course, where so many of our trips begin, across the pond with Amtrak in the US, Via Rail in Canada, and there's many, many more too. And what that allows us to do is two things. One, it means we always have access to the best available fares and prices for you because we work directly. Secondly, that's how we're able to offer all of these holidays to book up to 2 years in advance. And that does mean that if you are booking for next year, you're going to secure all of the rail travel element of your holiday at the current year's pricing, meaning that you're not going to get hit by any price increases that might happen over the next couple of years as well. Okay, that's the introduction over. As I promised, we'll just take a very brief sidestep to answer the following question, because it's one that we're getting asked all the time at the moment by phone, by email, and on these webinars too, which is a reason that we've incorporated it into the webinars themselves. And that is how rail operators over in mainland Europe are maintaining a safe travel environment right now. And the answer to that, broadly speaking, is not too dissimilar from what's happening here, really. There's a number of different things in place, obviously slightly different depending which country you travel to. But things that are in common are facial coverings required in stations and on trains for passengers and staff, increased cleaning and sanitation measures for all train stations and the trains themselves, of course. And where it's possible to do so, ticket control is being carried out in a contactless way, either through email or on apps, rather than checking physical documents wherever that can be done. So hopefully that gives a couple of ideas as to what's happening. As I say, it's not too dissimilar to what's happening in the UK, really, but hopefully that gives a good indication of what's going on. Right, now it's time to look at some of our Italian and Swiss holidays. And today we're going to focus on 5 most popular right now. So these are holidays that people are either booking to travel later this year or to travel next year. So we've gone for the 5 most popular. And to begin with, this one is it's really interesting to see this one in here, because this is a relatively new holiday that we've started featuring. But it's really increased in popularity over the last couple of years. And this is traveling all the way to Sicily by train. You might say, Well, how is that even possible? We'll come to that in just a moment. In terms of how the holiday works, it starts in either London or, of course, could start at your local train station if you'd like to connect down to the capital. And then we carry on with a Eurostar journey to Paris. That's around about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then a simple change in Paris and connect with a high-speed train direct to Milan. And you'd arrive in the evening in Milan. You have an overnight stay there. And then the next day is free to explore before boarding an overnight sleeper train from Milan all the way down to Taumina in Sicily. It's the longest overnight journey in Italy and one of the longest in Europe altogether. Actually, if we discount Russia and places like that, it's one of the longest that you can actually do. And there's two very interesting points about that, which we'll mention in just a moment or two. On arrival in Sicily, you have 2 nights in each of Taumina, where you can discover Greek and Roman temples, amongst other things, and some very other famous monuments too. Then 2 nights in Catania, where you can get up close to Europe's biggest active volcano. And then finally 2 nights in the Sicilian capital of Palermo. Then you have a choice. You can either fly back home to the UK from Palermo, or if you prefer not to fly, what we recommend and offer is an overnight ferry journey from Palermo to Naples, and then you can carry on by train from Naples back home. So let's take a closer look. We start things off in Milan, and this is a really interesting city to visit. As I mentioned, you'd arrive early evening on day 1, so you'd have the day on the second day to explore. And this is definitely one of the places you would be heading over to. This is of the famous cathedral, the Duomo, right in the heart of things in Milan. Lots of interesting gallerias with coffee shops and shopping opportunities and nice restaurants in the gallerias just off this square as well. So lots to see and do, lots of history in a really big bustling city. One other thing that you can do as well, just to mention at this point, is that all of these holidays that we offer here can be customized. And one of the ways that you can do that is you might like to perhaps add a night in or a day in the course of the holiday. So for example, if you were to add an extra night in Milan, we could add in something like a trip to Bellagio on Lake Como, which is really easy to visit as a day trip from Milan. It's very, very close indeed. And you can find yourself in this wonderful part of the world with spectacular scenery, spend some time exploring the lake before carrying on with the rest of the holiday. So just an idea on how you could customize and add even more value to all of the holidays that we feature today. And I'll mention a few others in passing as we go through too. After exploring Milan, then it's time to catch the overnight sleeper to Taumina. And for anyone who hasn't traveled by overnight train in Europe before, well, this gives you a little idea of what to expect. On the right-hand side, that's the accommodation that you would see as you board the train and board your cabin. So you'd have comfortable seating, and then in the course of the evening, a member of the train staff will come along to your sleeper cabin and we'll set things up for the night. And then it will look something like the image on the left-hand side. And all of these cabins on this train can be for the use of either 1 person, 2 people, or 3. So they can accommodate up to 3 people in total. Now, 2 interesting things about this particular journey. One, as I mentioned before, it's the longest overnight journey in Italy. And what's quite nice about it is you board the train in Milan in the evening, and then the next morning when you wake up, you'd be treated to some fantastic views of the Italian coastline as you're heading down towards the toe of the boot, if you think of Italy on the map. You get some great views of the sea. Second interesting point, of course, is that Sicily is an island. So this particular journey is one of the last few remaining boat trains over in mainland Europe. So what actually happens is when the train gets to Messina, it carries on to the Straits of Messina and is then shunted onto a ferry The ferry crosses over from mainland Italy to Sicily, docks in Sicily, and then the train carries on out of the other side of the ferry and carries on its merry way to Taumina. So you actually go all the way by train, including a ferry journey in the last little section there. And you don't actually have to stay on board the train. You can normally get out and have a wander, stretch your legs on board the ferry, enjoy the views as well during that particular journey. So not something you get to do every day by any stretch of the imagination. Really nice journey. As it departs in the evening, what we typically recommend for this one is to have an evening meal in Milan before the train leaves, and then take a little something with you for breakfast and lunch the following day, because you can get a couple of light snacks, but it doesn't have a full restaurant car. So it's good to have something with you for lunch, for breakfast, and maybe an early lunch before you arrive into Sicily. But a really special and interesting journey to kick things off. And then after that, of course, what great destinations we have to visit. First up, we have Taumina. And this is probably the most famous building in Taumina. This is the ancient Greek theatre, which was built in the 3rd century BC, and it's still actually in use today. So if you're lucky, when you are in Taumina, you might actually be able to attend a performance there, perhaps. But a really fascinating place, and always available to go and visit and to have a look around. So much history there, and of course, looking out to sea, what a fantastic view that is as well. How beautifully blue the sea is, and just perfect setting and backdrop, isn't it? And those backdrops you'll see throughout your time in Sicily, really. I mean, this shows one of the train journeys running along the island, and you can see here the train connecting the various Sicilian destinations running along by the coast, and just really beautiful setting, lots of great views available during this particular holiday too. The next destination that you would be heading to is Catania. And whilst in Catania, of course, we include a trip to Mount Etna, Europe's largest active volcano. Again, really memorable experience. Just looking at that picture there, it looks a bit like something out of a science fiction film or something, doesn't it? It looks like an alien landscape, but it's not. It's in Sicily, and it's available to visit, and a really, really memorable experience once again. And then last, but by very much not least, you visit Palermo, the Sicilian capital. Again, there's lots of history, lots of culture, lots to discover and explore. Great restaurants as well, particularly if you like seafood. There's lots of great food in Sicily. This is the Praetorian Fountain, which is right in the heart of the historic centre. And a really interesting fact about this one actually is that it was actually built in Florence in 1554, and then 20 years later was physically transported over to Sicily, which is is no mean feat anyway, really, is it? But in 1574 must have taken some doing, I think we can say. But a fantastic destination once again. And perhaps if you're on this webinar today and you've been to Italy maybe a couple of times, you've visited a lot of the the iconic destinations like Venice, Rome, and so on, Florence, and you're looking for something a little bit different, this could be a really nice holiday to do, because as hopefully you can see here, we've got some great destinations over in Sicily, really, really interesting, and perhaps ones that maybe people don't always think of as first destinations over in Italy to visit. So it could be a really nice option to explore. Now, the next holiday that we'll look at is a perennial favorite. This one is always one of the most popular holidays that we have, and it doesn't really take take too much to see why. This is our Grand Venice, Florence, and Rome itinerary. So how this one works is, again, we start things off either at your local train station or at London St Pancras, and we take Eurostar journey from London over to Paris. Again, that's about 2 hours 20 or so. In Paris, a straightforward change before traveling direct to Geneva by high-speed TGV Lyria. That's about 3 hours 20, 3 hours 30. And Geneva is a perfect base to break the journey have an overnight stay by the lake, perhaps go for a stroll, enjoy dinner, and so on. And then the next morning, you have a really memorable and special journey as you take the train directly from Geneva through to Venice, traveling through the Swiss Alps along the Simplon Pass. It's the route that the Orient Express travels along. And there's some wonderful picture postcard views of Switzerland, mountains, lakes. It really does have it all. You get some great views of Lake Maggiore as well. And then you arrive into Venice for a 2-night stay. After 2 nights in Venice, where we include a gondola ride, a walking tour, and entrance to the Doge's Palace, you then head on by high-speed Italian train directly to the city centre of Florence for a 2-night stay there. And we include entrance to the Uffizi Gallery and a sightseeing tour there as well. And then finally, it's on to the capital, the Eternal City, for, again, 2 nights, high-speed train direct from Florence to Rome, very, very quick indeed. 2 nights in Rome. We include an ancient Rome tour that gets you into the Colosseum and the Forum, and also a tour of the Vatican City. So you really do get all of the highlights included. And then you have a choice. You can either fly home from Rome, or if you prefer, take the train up for an extra night from Rome to Turin, enjoy the afternoon and evening in Turin, having a look around. And then the next day, take the train direct to Paris, traveling through the French Alps this time, and then simple change before heading from Paris to London, arriving early evening back into the UK. So lots and lots included here. Geneva is where we start things off. And as I mentioned before, timing wise, it makes a perfect destination to break the journey. And all of the hotels that we work with are all in the Old Town area, close to the train station, and also close to the lake, therefore, as well. So you can have a very enjoyable evening, having a wander around the lake, enjoy dinner. And you can see, in fact, at the back of the screen, around about 11 o'clock-ish or so there, that's where the jet d'eau, the famous plume of water, spurts up into the sky. That's one of the symbols of Geneva. So it works really well to break the journey there. And then, of course, the next day you have that wonderful train journey on to Venice. Great Swiss scenery. And then arriving in Venice, for anyone who's done it before by train, I'm sure you'll be nodding your heads in agreement. It's one of the most fantastic places to travel to in any case, but it's also really, really interesting to arrive by train, because as you leave the mainland and approach the islands, the train runs across the lagoon. You get some great views of the lagoon either side of the train. And then you pull into Santa Lucia station, and as you walk out of the station, you're confronted by the Grand Canal right open in front of you, water taxis queuing up outside. You know exactly where you are. You couldn't be anywhere else. Completely unique, and it's just a fantastic welcome to what is a beautiful and unique destination. One of the inclusions that we have whilst in Venice is entrance to the Doge's Palace, and this was built in 1340, and it's a Venetian Gothic style, originally, of course, residence of the Doge, who was the supreme authority in Venice at that time, and therefore it also means it was basically a seat of government at that period, but a really fascinating place to visit, and right in the heart of things on St. Mark's Square. So lots and lots to see and do. As I say, we include entrance here, we include a gondola tour as well. So just a unique destination, and one you can always go back to time and time again. Next up, it's Florence, of course, home to the Renaissance, of course, and just taking a moment to mention another one of the ways that you could potentially customize one of these holidays. And that could be by upgrading your hotel in one or more destinations if you'd like to. The example we have here is the Belmont San Michele in Florence, which, as you can see, is nestled on a hilltop just outside the city centre and has some absolutely amazing views looking down over the city. All of the holidays that we feature are all based normally on either 3 or 4-star hotels, with a few exceptions. Some of the luxury holidays might be based on 5 stars. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to stick with that 3 or 4-star hotel in the holiday. If you'd like to upgrade one or more, for example, perhaps you're celebrating a special occasion in Florence in this example, and you'd like to stay somewhere extra special there, then you can do. Equally, if you'd like to upgrade your hotels throughout, that's no problem at all. And of course, if you're happy to leave things as they are and stay with what's recommended in the original holiday with a 3 or 4 star hotel, then of course that's fine too. So there are lots of different options out there just to make sure that your holiday is the right one for you. And then after Florence, we finish things up in the Eternal City, of course, the Italian capital. And we include a tour of ancient Rome, which includes the Colosseum, which we all know, of course, but also this really interesting part of the city, the remains of the Roman Forum on the Palatine Hill. This, of course, was the remains of the ancient government buildings that would have been used for speeches and trials and all manner of other activities during the Roman Empire, but really fascinating place to visit. Lots and lots of history, lots to learn. And of course, the other benefit of these two tours is not just the benefit of a guide explaining exactly what you're looking at, but also you avoid the queues outside, particularly in the heat of summer. That's very, very useful because you want to be inside looking around, not standing outside waiting to be let in. So very, very important to have that. And that's also the case for the tour of the Vatican that we have, the Vatican Museum, Sistine Chapel. Again, you go straight in, you don't have to spend ages standing in a queue, waiting in line patiently. So, as I mentioned before, this one is a perennial favorite, really. And it doesn't really take too much to see why, because I always think if you're doing a holiday by train, what you'd ideally like to have is a combination of two things. You want to have interesting destinations to visit, of course, and we definitely have that. And also, one of the reasons of traveling by train, of course, is to enjoy the different scenery and different landscapes. And we've got a fantastic train journey traveling through the Swiss Alps to get to Italy. So I think that ticks all the boxes as far as a rail holiday is concerned. And next we have a slightly different permutation on this particular theme. Again, traveling to Italy via the Alps, but this time heading to the Amalfi Coast. So once again, we start things off either at your local train station or London St Pancras, heading directly to Paris from London by Eurostar, and then on to Geneva for that overnight stay. Again, the next day, we've got that stunning journey traveling through the Simplon Pass before arriving this time in Milan, and a simple change of platforms before taking a connecting high-speed train directly to Florence. We have an overnight stay here in Florence just to break the travel up again as much as anything. But again, this is a really good example of where you could just as easily add an extra night in Florence if you wanted to. It'd be a really nice thing to do. And then the next day, carrying on by high-speed train once again from Florence all the way down to Naples, and then transferring onto the local train from Naples to Sorrento, gateway to the Amalfi Coast. We have a 4-night stay in Sorrento. We include a trip out to Pompeii and also to Capri. And then you have a choice of either flying home from Naples or heading back via Turin to the UK. So again, let's take a closer look at this one. So I mentioned extending a stay in Florence, but of course you could just as easily take an extra night in Switzerland. And one of the things you could do if you decided to do that would be to visit the Chateau de Chillon in Montreux, one of the best preserved medieval castles in Europe. And you can either visit that very easily by short train journey from Geneva, or even more excitingly, perhaps, you can head along by boat, as you can see here, heading across the lake to the castle. So again, one of the many, many different possibilities and permutations that it's possible to do. Florence, our next port of call, home to the Renaissance, of course, and so many fascinating buildings like the famous Duomo here that we have in the center of the screen. If you've not visited Florence before, I maybe would definitely think about adding an extra night because it's really well worth a visit. It's one of my favorite destinations, I think, for lots of reasons, but one of them is that it's so walkable. You don't really need to use public transport or taxis very much, if at all. Maybe, depending where you stay, you might want a short taxi journey from the train station. But other than that, it's really easy to walk around. All the main sites and places of interest are really close together. And it's a really interesting place just to wander around, and there's lots of statues and fountains that you can explore and admire. And the buildings, the architecture is absolutely fantastic. So I highly, highly recommend Florence. It's a fantastic destination. And then after traveling via Naples, you arrive with this beautiful view at the end of it all as you arrive in Sorrento, gateway to the Amalfi Coast, and an absolutely beautiful setting, as you can see here. Fantastic views looking out to the Bay of Naples, and a beautiful setting. Lots of great views, great food and drinks available. Make sure you try the limoncello if you haven't tried that before. It's very, very nice indeed. And just a beautiful place to spend 4 nights. Great setting. We include a couple of tours for you, as I mentioned. One of them is a guided tour out to the ruins of Pompeii and Herculaneum, so you can get to know everything that happened there after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. And again, that's a really interesting day out. You really do learn a lot by having a guide talk you through exactly what it is that you're looking at and what these buildings used to be and how it all worked. And we also have a trip out to the island of Capri as well, where you head over by ferry and then have a tour around Capri, including the famous Blue Grotto, and you have some time to explore over there as well. And of course, there's many other things that you can do whilst in this part of the world. And one of the nice things to do might be to head out by boat. You could enjoy a Prosecco cruise like you can see here, which would be a really relaxing way to spend your time, especially if you go perhaps close to sunset, something like that. As the sun's starting to set, some absolutely wonderful views out to sea and over Sorrento and beyond. Really, really beautiful setting. Now, next, we'll look at one of the most famous and iconic of train journeys, perhaps even, who knows, maybe even the most famous and iconic. It's the Venice Simplon Orient Express to Venice. So very, very popular, very, very famous, of course. We have a large number of different holidays that feature this most famous of train journeys. For example, we have a holiday taking the Orient Express over to Venice. We have one staying in Venice and then coming back to the UK via the Orient Express. You can do it in both ways if you would like to. And we have other options that, for example, where you can take the Orient Express over to Venice and then relax by one of the Italian lakes, maybe spend a few days in Lake Como or Lake Garda afterwards. So there's lots and lots of different permutations which you can find on our website. But the one that we're looking at today is one that combines this wonderful train journey and, of course, the fantastic destination that is Venice as well. We travel up to Switzerland via 2 of the most beautiful scenic train journeys in the world. And it's a really nice combination of the stunning Swiss scenery and 2, very different but really enjoyable travel experiences that work really, really well. So if you do have a special occasion coming up in the not too distant future, this could be a nice option to look at. So let's take a closer look and see how it works. So the journey begins in London at Victoria Station, where you would travel firstly on board the British Pullman over to the English Channel, and then you would carry on board the Venice Simplon Orient Express, traveling through France, waking up the next morning to some stunning scenery in Switzerland and Austria, before finally having that really memorable arrival that I mentioned before into Venice. You have a 3-night stay in Venice, and then we carry on by train to Switzerland, firstly by traveling on to Milan and then up into Switzerland via the Benina Express, one of the most spectacular journeys that you can do. You'd have 2 nights in the town of St. Moritz in the Graubünden region there. And then after leaving St. Moritz, you take the train directly from there on board the equally famous, equally stunning Glacier Express. which runs right through some really mountainous terrain through the Alps across to the resort town of Zermatt in the shadows of the Matterhorn mountain. Really beautiful setting. You have 2 nights in Zermatt. We include a day trip on the Gonograts Cog Railway, which is one of the best places to get some fantastic views of the Matterhorn. And then you carry on to Zurich, from where you can either fly home or take the train directly to Paris, and from there on to London. The choice, as they say, is yours. So that's how it all works. But of course, the question you may well be wanting to know is, what's it like on board the Venice Simplon Orient Express? Well, let's take a closer look and find out. So first up, the image that you can see on your screens here is the bar car. And this really becomes the social hub of the train in the evening. This is where people will start to gather pre and post dinner to relax, enjoy a drink, of course, and perhaps enjoy the pianist who will be playing. You can see the piano in the center of the screen there. As you can hopefully get a flavor of from the image there, we've got the wonderful decor throughout. The really does have that wonderful flavor of, you know, traveling back in time and harkening back to the golden age of travel. You've got the you know, the Art Deco surroundings, the wonderful uniforms of the staff. It just all comes together, and it's a really special experience. I know it's a little bit of a cliche to say that it makes memories that last a lifetime, but I think sometimes, you know, cliches are cliches because they've got a lot of truth in them, and it certainly does. It's just a very, very memorable trip, and really does, you know, harken back to a bygone age. Here you can see the lounge car again, a great place to, you know, to gather during the day and enjoy the journey. You know, perhaps people watch, get to know your fellow traveling companions, or just sit back, relax, and take it all in. Really. In the evening, you'll find everybody will be either in the lounge car or the bar car will be dressing up for dinner. It's dress code of jacket and tie for gentlemen and equivalent for ladies. But you'll find that whilst it's not compulsory, a lot of people will go for, you know, well, I will go for black tie, etc., and really, you know, dress up and really enter into the spirit of things and just make it as special an occasion as it possibly can be. As for your accommodation on board the train, when you board the Venice Simplon Orient Express, this is what your cabin will look like. This is the view that awaits you by day. You can see you've got really comfortable seating arrangements there, a very large window to admire the scenery. And again, you've got the, you know, the traditional, the original wooden furnishings and so on from the original cars that were used along those journeys all those years ago. And then whilst you go for dinner, there are two sittings at one of 3 restaurant cars on board the train. I should mention actually at this point that you'll be certainly very well fed in the course of this particular journey. As you leave London on the British Pullman, you'll be treated to a sumptuous 3-course lunch with a champagne aperitif. Then in the evening on the Orient Express, Simplon Orient Express, you have a 4-course evening meal. All of the food which is prepared for you is cooked freshly on board. In fact, as the train stops from time to time, you might see some food deliveries being taken on board. It's incredible what they do, you know, in what's a, you know, relatively small space in the onboard kitchen. And then the next morning, you'll get a knock on the door. You'll be served breakfast in your cabin by your cabin steward, and then you'll have lunch and then afternoon tea the following day before you arrive into Venice. So you'll probably just about be able to walk off the train at the end of it all, but it's you know, it might be a close thing. Anyway, this is what the cabin looks like by day. Stop talking about food and carry on. This is what the cabin looks like by day whilst you're enjoying your evening dinner on board the train. Your cabin attendant will be hard at work, beavering away, transforming it for the evening, and it will look something like this. So you can see now the beds are folded down, everything is prepared. The Orient Express slippers and bathrobe will make an appearance, and everything will be ready for the evening. And then, of course, the next morning, you've got that wonderful scenery in Switzerland and Austria to wake up to as well, which is pretty special. And what surroundings to enjoy it in as well. Of course, if you would like to make it even more special, it is possible to do that. And if you do fancy the idea of traveling like royalty and enjoying the best experiences possible to have, you can upgrade to a grand suite, which looks a little bit like this. Now, there are only 3 of these on board any one departure. So if you do like the look of this, you do have to get in quickly because they won't hang around. You can see again, the attention to detail, the furnishings are everything absolutely exquisite. You've got the full double bed, the extra space. You've got your full bathroom as well, just out of shot. So it really is, very large, very luxurious indeed. So again, very limited number of them. So if you would like to upgrade to one of the grand suites, then you really do need to get in early. So that's one thing that you can do, one option to upgrade your trip if you would like to. And another option might be to upgrade your hotel stay in Venice. For example, this is one of our favorite hotels. This is the Metropole, which is a 5-star hotel in a fantastic location, just a stone's throw from St. Mark's Square. And you can see out of the window there the lagoon looking over to the Giudecca. So it really is in a prime location, close to everything that you're going to want to see and do. So fantastic start to the holiday. We've got one of the most, if not the most famous of train journeys, and of course a wonderful destination. And then what we've done for this holiday is we've decided to combine the travel back to include some of the most breathtaking scenery in Europe. And we do that by adding in 2 spectacular Swiss train journeys. The first of which is the Benina Express, which you can see here. This is one of the most scenic train journeys that you can take. It's also a miracle of engineering because the train manages to climb from sea level at the start of its journey via going over a series of viaducts and spirals like the one you can see here, and bridges, etc. And it gradually, at its highest point, it's 7,391 feet above sea level, which is pretty impressive the way that was constructed. And all throughout, you get to enjoy some wonderful scenery. If you can see the train carriages towards the left, you'll see that everyone has these wonderful large windows that you can just about make out there. And they reach all the way from your seat all the way up to the ceiling. So everybody gets this absolutely wonderful view of all of the scenery that you travel past. In fact, the entire route of the Benina Express is UNESCO World Heritage listed, which means you get to enjoy some wonderful scenery like this. This is Lake Poschiavo, that you'll be traveling along towards the start of the journey in this particular direction. But you get the full gambit, the full range from mountains, lakes, forests. You really do get everything that you'd want to see traveling through Switzerland. It's absolutely exquisite scenery, and you get those really large panoramic windows to enjoy it from that we mentioned before, and you can order some drinks and snacks to accompany your enjoyment of the scenery from your seat in the course of the journey too. So that's journey number 1. Scenic train journey number 2 after that is you have 2 nights in St. Moritz, and then you travel across Switzerland through the mountains on board the Glacier Express, which is in some ways the sister train to the Benina Express. They're both equally stunning journeys. It's difficult to say which one I prefer because they're both pretty special. And this is the second of the 2 that we'll look at today. Again, you can see if you look at the windows of the train, they've all got those large windows, and we'll take a look inside in a moment, but you can see they reach right up to the top. So really, the emphasis is all about enjoying the scenery. In fact, the Glacier Express is sometimes referred to as the slowest express train in the world. And really, the word express itself is a little bit of a misnomer because it's nothing to do with speed. It's all to do with enjoying the scenery. It's the only direct train that runs on this route. So like many of the train journeys that you can take in Switzerland, it's really the only way to travel to certain parts of the country. You just can't get views like this particular one using other forms of transport because there's just no other way of getting there. But it takes 7 3/4 hours to do the full length of the journey from St. Moritz through to Zermatt, and it really is stunning scenery throughout once again. This is what it's like on board. This is standard class, and first thing we should say is that all of the train carriages have been recently renovated. They're all pretty much new as of the last year or so, which I think you can see here. And again, this really does show the wonderful windows, that reach right up to the top, almost, going over your head, almost right up to the ceiling as well. There's just one kind of thin wood paneling across the top, and otherwise you can look straight up out the window and you can see all of your surroundings. You can also order meal and drinks at your seat if you would like to throughout the course of the day, as it's a longish journey, so you might want to enjoy some lunch whilst on board. You can choose from a la carte options or a set menu. It's entirely up to you. They have their own Glacier Express wine and beer that they make as well, which you can enjoy, or coffee, soft drinks, whatever it might be. The main difference between standard and first class is that this is standard class here. You can see either side of the aisle you have 2 seats either side. In first class you'd have 2 seats one side and 1 seat the other, so the seats are that little bit larger, a little bit more comfort, more leg room, a little bit quieter, more relaxing travel environment as you've got fewer people, so more space to stretch out and enjoy the journey. But you can order food and drink at your seat in both classes of travel, and of course both classes also have the large panoramic windows too. However, there is a way, once again, to make things even more special if you would like to. And in 2019, they launched a new class of travel on board the Glacier Express, and it is incredibly exclusive, and it's called Excellence Class, and it looks a little bit like this. So what's the difference? First of all, I mentioned it's very exclusive, and that's true. It's only available on 1 train a day in each direction. It's only available if you do the full run, as you would do on this particular holiday between St. Moritz and Zermatt. And there are only a maximum of 20 seats available on each departure. So it's made up entirely of tables for 2, as you can see here, all matching up exactly next to the window, maximizing the scenery. You get your own Excellence Class concierge who looks after you. You get a welcome aperitif at the Glacier Bar, as you can see on the screen there. And it's also a real gastronomic experience as well. You get a 5-course meal included in the cost of your ticket, with a real emphasis on Swiss dishes, Swiss flavors, and each meal comes accompanied with its own Swiss wine as well. So it really is, the full flavor of Switzerland altogether, from the wonderful scenery and setting to the fantastic food and wine that you'd enjoy in the course of the trip as well. So that could go really nicely, obviously, with the Orient Express journey that you would have experienced traveling out. So it's a really special one to do. Again, if this is something you like, again, just to emphasize, there's only 20 seats on 1 train a day. So again, the early bird catches the worm in this occasion, but absolutely stunning. And again, a really memorable travel experience, different from the Orient Express, of course, much more modern and contemporary, as you can see here, but a really nice companion piece to it, I think, which, if you do have a special occasion coming up, could make this a really nice holiday, I think. And next up, we'll look at another old favorite once again, heading over to Switzerland. And this holiday is called Scenic Switzerland, which rather gives away the USP, I think, here, which of course is that wonderful Swiss scenery. And just to reiterate that one of the greatest things about traveling by train in Switzerland is, like I said before, if I'm going to misappropriate the famous phrase on the advert, you get to see parts of Switzerland that other forms of transport don't reach, because lots of the scenery that you would see here, you can't see traveling any other way. You can't see it by car, by coach. It really is the only way to enjoy some of the scenery, whether because it's going up to the top of a mountain or it's just traveling, along relatively inaccessible parts of the country. So you get to enjoy some of the great natural beauty of the country. Occasionally, people, when they see the map that you can see on the screen here, think, "Oh, that looks like an awful lot of travel." But it's the train experiences here really are the highlights of the holiday in many cases. And travel in Switzerland, for anyone who's done it, I'm sure you'd agree, is it's the easiest country to travel in because everything's so straightforward and runs like clockwork, as you'd expect. And it's just a really pleasurable experience. So how does it work? Well, we start off in Zurich, which you can either reach by train or plane, depending on your preference. And then from Zurich, I head down to St. Moritz in the Graubünden region for a 2-night stay, and we include a day trip on the Benina Express that we looked at a short time ago, down to the Italian border, Tirano, and back again. So 2-night stay there. Great destination for shopping, for wide open spaces, scenery, beautiful part of the world. And then you would take the Glacier Express all the way through the mountains across down to Zermatt once again, like we looked at just before. So again, if you'd like to include the Excellence Class upgrade, you could do if you wanted to. We have a 2-night stay in Zermatt, and what we include on the second day is a day trip to the up the Gonograts Cog Railway, which is the most fantastic way to enjoy some amazing views of the Matterhorn mountain, which is just adjacent to Zermatt. So fantastic scenery. Once again, doing that, it's the best way to experience the views of the mountain by far. And then from Zermatt, we head down to the shores of Lake Geneva. This time we choose Montreux for an overnight stay. And then you travel up via another very scenic train line, the Golden Pass line, to the beautiful lakeside town of Lucerne for a 3-night stay. And we include 2 excursions from there. One heading up on a day trip to the Jungfraujoch, the top of Europe, and in many ways the equally special day trip to Mount Pilatus as well. And then after 3 nights, it's back to Zurich and time to head home. So we've already taken a look at the Benina and Glacier Express, of course. So let's take a look at some other parts of this holiday, maybe some of the less widely known, perhaps. This is the Gonograts Cog Railway from Zermatt. It's the highest open-air railway in Europe. Originally, it was created back in the 19th century, when at that time, it was the world's first fully electric cog railway. Now, the real highlight of this trip, as you can see by this image here, is the spectacular views of the Matterhorn that you get throughout the journey, not just at the summit. As you can see here, you get wonderful views throughout, great photo opportunities. You'll often see mountain ibex running along the mountainside as well as you gradually get to the top. And then once you reach the summit, you've got an amazing panoramic view of, yes, the Matterhorn, but not just that. You also got this 360-degree panorama of over 29 mountain peaks, all of which are over 4,000 meters high. So it's a real Swiss mountain experience. Fun, wonderful scenery. You can spend as long at the top as you like. There's walks that you can do, taking the scenery if you like a bit of hiking or just gentle strolling. There's something for everybody. There's a restaurant up there as well. You can have a meal up there, enjoy the scenery. It's a really, really nice experience. And then when you've had enough, you can head back down again, enjoy the views of the Matterhorn as you head back down to Zermatt, and then spend the rest of the day there. But a really, really enjoyable experience. After leaving Zermatt and the Matterhorn behind, you head once again to the shores of Lake Geneva. This time we choose Montreux on the northeastern shore of the lake. What can you do there? Well, you can visit the Chateau de Chillon, the medieval castle that we saw just a few slides back. It's also very famous for the annual jazz festival. There's a very famous casino there, if you like that kind of thing. And a statue of Freddie Mercury, as it was one of his favorite destinations to visit. And of course, we can't forget Lake Geneva itself. Lots of great trips out on the lake that you can do by boat as well, or take a stroll along the shore. Nice, relaxing part of the world to visit. And then we carry on to Lucerne, and we travel along. You travel along, and again, one of the most scenic stretches of Switzerland, one that perhaps maybe gets unfairly overlooked at times. This is the Golden Pass line. And the main difference between this and the Benina Glacier Express is that it isn't actually one train at all. It's actually composed of 3 short train journeys. Again, it's very, very straightforward because each one will arrive into one station and the next train departs from the platform opposite. So very, very easy, works seamlessly. And you get to enjoy wonderful scenery like this. So again, you get mountains, you get lots of vineyards, greenery, and lakes on this particular line as well. In fact, as you pass through Interlaken, the name Interlaken itself means literally between the lakes. So you get views of Lake Thun, Lake Brienz, really, really special. And then carry on through to Lucerne eventually. And for part of the journey, you also get those wonderful large panoramic windows that we spoke about as well, where you can really enjoy the scenery and take it all in with an amazing view that you can sit back and enjoy. So another pretty special Swiss journey once again. Final stop is Lucerne, beautiful lakeside destination in its own right. Wonderful old antique wooden bridge, the Chapel Bridge running across the lake. And we have 2 day trips from Lucerne. We include a day trip to the top of Europe, the Jungfrau Joch, which you may know, perhaps may have been to before or may have seen about. But we also include another trip, which maybe isn't quite as well known, but is equally stunning in its own right, which is the Mount Pilatus Railway. Mount Pilatus is the steepest rack railway in the world with a maximum gradient of 48 degrees, which you get some idea of here on this picture, I think, don't you? But for most of the year, what's really nice about this journey is it's actually in three distinct parts, really. Firstly, you start off by boat with a wonderful trip by boat across Lake Lucerne, beautiful views. That takes you to the rack railway here, and then you take this really steep gradient up to the top of Mount Pilatus. Wonderful views, great photo opportunities throughout. Again, you can spend as much time as you want at the top. You can go for walks, strolls. There's all kinds of winter activities. There's a restaurant at the top there. You can enjoy a coffee, whatever you might fancy doing. Take as long up there as you want, within reason. And then for the descent, we do something slightly different. You come back down by cable car or gondola like this. And again, you get absolutely stunning views of the surrounding scenery. I will admit that I'm terrified of heights, but even for me, that looks absolutely breathtaking, doesn't it? Wonderful views of the surrounding lakes and mountains. And it's nice, the 2 different forms of transportation. You go across the lake by boat, first of all, then you go up by the rack railway for one view, and then you get the gondola and cable car in 2 parts coming back down. So you get just different perspectives of it all. And of course, you enjoy plenty of time at the summit as well. Again, if you wanted to, you could add an extra night to your stay and actually stay at the top, which you can't do at some of the other mountain railways, but you can here. You can stay at the Pilatus Column Hotel in right at the top and enjoy the wonderful views, and also have it all to yourself once everyone who's coming for the day has gone home, and once the train and cable cars have stopped for the day. You can enjoy it all to yourselves. And there's a really nice restaurant at the hotel as well, with great views of the surrounding areas, and a really fascinating, unique experience to be able to spend a night at the top of the mountain, which is again pretty special. So if you like the idea of that, really, really easy to do and really easy to add in if you wanted to. So there we have it. That was Scenic Switzerland, and that was a selection of our top 5 most popular holidays to Italy and Switzerland as things currently stand right now. So very popular for people booking later this year for some snow in Switzerland. Also next year, of course, very, very popular at the current moment. We do also have, if we're looking closer to home, perhaps if you fancy a break over the last-minute break over the summer or September, whenever it might be, we have a variety of UK breaks available with destinations ranging from Chester to York, Bristol, Bath, Edinburgh, Stratford-upon-Avon, and there's lots and lots of other breaks to Scotland as well via daytime trains or overnight train on the Caledonian Sleeper if you fancy a night train experience, but a little closer to home as well. So lots of great UK breaks, all available again via the website. Railbookers.co.uk is where you can find all of the holidays we've looked at today and more besides. You can either search by destination, or if you know the type of holiday you want, you can search by holiday type as well, whether it's a luxury train experience, for example. And if you want to see all the other Orient Express options, you can do that very easily. See all the different holidays we have that feature the Orient Express. You can search for lakes and mountains holidays, for scenery, whatever it might be that you fancy doing. And all those brochures that I mentioned, you can download all of those from there as well. Right, I told you it was a lot to get through today, and hopefully you realize that I wasn't lying when I said that we've just about made it to the end unscathed, I hope. It's just gone 1 minute past 3, so we're slightly over time, but hopefully it's been enjoyable. Let's just see if we can maybe answer a question or two while we're here, as we're a little bit late, or we've had a lot to get through. I probably won't be able to get through too many, but as I mentioned, we will reach out and answer every single one that's come through. Okay, we've got a question from Leslie here, who's asking where it's listed 2 nights in a city. Do you sleep on the train or in a hotel? That's in a hotel, Leslie, in each destination. So where it says 1, 2, 3, 4, however many nights it is, then you'd stay in a hotel in each destination. See if we can do maybe one other very quick one. We have a question from Barbara. Hello there, Barbara. Barbara's question is asking about how much luggage you can take with you. And the answer to that one, Barbara, is if there's no flights involved, as there don't have to be on any of these holidays, unless you'd like to, then there's no real restriction. You can take up to 2 items of luggage per person, up to 1 item of hand luggage as well. So as long as you're happy looking after those, then no real restriction. And the other good news is nobody's going to weigh them on the way back. So you don't need to worry about tipping the scale, or on the way out for that matter. But it does mean that if you're stocking up on limoncello in Sorrento, or souvenirs for the family and friends in Rome, wherever it might be, no one's going to weigh your luggage and say you've got to pay more or leave it behind or anything nasty like that at the end of the holiday. So another really nice advantage of traveling by train. Right, sadly, that is pretty much all we have time for. So we did have an awful lot to get through this week. Thank you very, very much to everybody for the pleasure of your company. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's been food for thought, perhaps, with some ideas on future travel and maybe some happy memories of places you visited in the past as well, and generated some ideas. It's been great to have you here with us. Please do stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon, and we very much look forward to having the pleasure of your company on another webinar in the not too distant future. Have a great Tuesday afternoon. Thank you.